Welcome, everyone, to Personalized Learning, a conversation for teacher librarians. Thank you so much for joining the conversation today. We have some really amazing conversation points, but more importantly, we have some very important conversation people that will be able to have this a conversation online as well as within a document that we will be using. So I am going to go ahead and actually share my screen right now so that we can get everybody onto the right spot. But while everybody is pulling up the document, I would love to have some introductions, and I will go first. But the link that we are going to use is our DPS, so ourdps.pl/librarians. So my name is Ben Wilkoff. I'm the Director of Personalized Professional Learning in the Department of Personalized Learning, and I'm going to throw it to my compatriot, Caroline.
Okay. Well, I am Caroline Hughes, the Director of Library Services, and I'm going to just introduce the next person that I see at the bottom of the screen, or just hand it over to you, and you introduce yourself, I should say. So next to me, I see Sudi.
Hi, I'm Sudi Stodala, and I'm the Professional Learning Coordinator for DPS Library Services. And the person sitting next to me is Stacy.
I'm Stacy. I'm the Teacher Librarian at Bradley International Elementary School. And I'm handing it over to you, Karen.
Karen is joining us via the text box, so she can introduce us. Does anyone know Karen, so that she can?
I do. This is Karen Epps.
Kathleen, can you introduce her as well?
Oh, I'm Casey Close, and I'm at Holm Elementary, and Karen Epps. I don't know what school you're at, Karen. Megan knows.
Kaiser. Kaiser Elementary.
Please come to the office. The Wang sisters, please come to the office.
You guys hear me? She's at Kaiser Elementary School.
Yeah. And the was it the Wang sisters should go to the office?
Yep, the Wang sisters.
Okay. Well then. I'm not even going to touch that one. Katie is joining us via a remote location, so we're going to have an introduction from Megan for Katie. Do you know about Katie?
Katie, do I know Katie?
Do you know Katie?
I know Katie. Yes, Katie. This is this is so strange. Katie Horlfinger. She is at Gust Elementary School, but she's still mute.
Yeah. Well, she's in her car right now, so I don't want to bug her too much.
Okay.
So
but
Megan, can you
us, right?
yourself?
Okay. What else? I'm Megan McQuinn. I'm at Howell in the far northeast.
It's a brilliant thing. I love it.
Katie.
And Stacy, who are you?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, I already did my spiel.
Oh, we did it already.
Yeah.
Did I go the wrong way round?
Yes.
Maybe.
I think it's in a different order for each of us. I'm
All right. I was thinking that we were in the same order for everybody, but now I'm seeing just how we did our round robin here. So now that everyone's sort of in our doc, today we're really just about understanding sort of the DPS vision for the classroom and where personalized learning fits in. And I'm really interested in sort of considering where you see as teacher librarians how you can be and probably already are leaders in the work of personalized learning, and sort of think about where personalization as an idea fits into your role for 15-16. So because we're doing this virtually, we have a lot of opportunity for conversation, and we may deviate from the scope of this, but if you are looking at my screen, and feel free to look at your own document, but within this you have, here I'll do this and you can kind of see my screen and what it looks like here. But obviously it's myself and Carolyn Hughes, and then you can look at who else is in the personalized learning department. So the academic portals, competency-based learning, which we are still looking to hire a director of that, ed tech with Kirk Anderson, extended learning with Catherine Plog-Martinez, and then obviously our executive director, Sherry Wrench, who you may know from her time as a principal in the district, and then also our business team manager, Angela Perea. So we are actually going to start with a video, the vision of a DPS classroom, and it's a little bit weird within a Hangout, but we're going to try it anyway. To watch this video all at once, so that we're not all trying to play it on our own machines. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the screen share, and I'm going to hop over to YouTube. There's a YouTube app within the. It should show up for you in the app. Cool.
Is there something we need to do, Ben, to get that going, or should it be automatic?
So the way that this works, and I just paused the video for myself here, but in the left-hand side, there's a YouTube app. Do you see it there?
It's a red box with the
Yeah.
camera in it.
And so within the, and I'll put it back to. What's great is we can watch it all together, but you have to be directly within that app. Okay.
You need to allow it.
Okay. You have to allow it so that everybody can watch it at the same time. So I need to give a little bit of wait time and allow us all to watch it together. And we had somebody sneak in with Kathleen.
Casey, that's Casey. Karen.
Hello. Tuning in from SLO work.
Woohoo!
We got Douglas here too.
Hello. Did you find the
So that totally answers the question I had as to where you were, Casey.
Yeah. I'm at CEC right
You're
now.
in the classroom.
Did everybody find the app in the left-hand side?
All right, I see nodding heads. I'm going to click play. Let's do it.
Okay.
Is that it be joyful, rigorous, and personal?
Oh. Sudi, if you pause it pauses.
Well, I think a lot about like DPS's symbol is a lamp. When we think about joyful, rigorous, and personalized, what we're thinking about is how do we help kids facilitate an understanding of where their light is.
We have conversations in our classroom around designing where they want to sit and how they want their classroom to eventually be.
You get to make ideas about the classroom.
Within that project, then we offer kids
That's fine. You can just leave it there.
Thank you. You're welcome. They want to listen. And kids are having discussions about how it's best to measure the classroom, and do I need to measure all four sides?
can kind of get them to see that there's a bridge between where they are and where they're going to be, then it becomes joyful.
In the first picture,
Oh, he's got like a fan. Well, hey, you know, you do. I'm
All right, you guys. So it looked like there were a few folks who sort of hopped in and out of the video. Hopefully you caught enough of the sort of message there for us to have this conversation. And it's okay if you didn't catch everything, because what's great is I'm very interested not only in what was going on in the video, but also in what your own experience with sort of the joy, rigor, and personalization that we're talking about within the classroom. So I'm going to open it up to a discussion here. Where do you see joy, rigor, and personalization, either in the video itself or within your own school? So thinking about the ways in which joy, rigor, and personalization show up. And I'm going to leave that open. I did mute a couple of folks because I heard some background noise, but Rob, feel free to unmute yourself. Megan, feel free to unmute yourself. So who has a thought? Where do you see joy, rigor, and personalization, either within the video that we just watched or within your own school?
I would think that some of the project-based projects that we work on for students are definitely personalized learning, because we adapt the projects to fit the needs of the students, and we give them a lot of choice, just so long as we put it, it's focused on what our goal is, what we need to master at the end. So we use a lot of student input in designing what the project will be and what it's going to look like.
I think that's really huge, the ability to use projects as a way of catering to the specific needs of the students. What else?
I'm coming. They have like, just like 6 of them updated on top of the computer. I'll be right back.
I see it whenever we're, like Megan said, whenever we're doing the big technology projects. That's when I see it most clearly.
Say more about that. The technology projects, how do you see personalization or even joy and rigor being a component of when you're working with those students?
Because most of our projects are inquiry-based, and so they're very unique to the student's interests. And a lot of times they have a choice of 3 or 4 different projects that they can do. So they can do a Prezi, or they can do a Google slideshow, or they can do a photo babble. So because they have all those different options, it's personalized, and then they have a lot more ownership in it.
So the fact that they have multiple ways to demonstrate their learning, it really is a strong advocacy for that personalization. Yeah, absolutely. Anything from Kathleen or Rob? Or Studi, I'll allow you to use your expertise as a teacher librarian.
Well, I think Stacy's really got a good point there. I think choice, and the more choice that you can give the students, the more invested they're going to be. And where else do you get to have the most choice but in the library?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that strong element of choice is almost one of the major metaphors of the library even. So I think that that's really strong. I saw, Kathleen, you unmuted yourself. Do you or your compatriot have any ideas here?
It's Katie. I made it.
Awesome.
I got rid of my photo that was up there.
Oh, gotcha.
I know I change up every year my curriculum just based on how long I've had the kids and how much more my fifth graders know after having them for 4 years versus, last year's fifth graders or the year before. My curriculum changes every year based on, because they know so much more than they did years ago coming in. So I guess that's...
Yeah, and I think too, kind of going off with Stacy, just having each year, if you get to retain those same kids that come year after year, you just start to know them on such more of a personal level. We're in a different, very unique than the classroom where you can see a kid from ECE to fifth grade. You know their interests, you know what they like. You get that class next year that you know you're going to have. You can change and manipulate how you're going to teach to them because you're gaining those personal relationships.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's a really huge point. The idea that you can actually build on top 1 year onto the next around what you know about a student, but also build additional levels of rigor because you know what that child is capable of. Because you know where that child has been, you can challenge them in ways that maybe some of the other classroom teachers might not be able to immediately do, or work with the classroom teacher in order to be able to challenge the student in that regard. Rob, any thoughts before we move on?
Sorry, I was in a meeting and I came late. I missed a video, and I really don't have a lot of or any library experience. So.
Yeah, he's new to computer and library this year.
All right. So hopefully we'll be able to tap into some of your other areas of expertise, but I think the idea that we're building some knowledge here is really important. So we're going to keep on sort of scrolling through the document that we're using, just so that we have the sort of the single flow. But if you keep on scrolling, or you watch the here, I'm going to choose to present to everybody so you can see. What we will have here is sort of the idea of where we've been. So if you have worked in any of these schools, or you work with any of the folks from these schools, you'll know that we started with blended learning and the Janus blended learning grants in 2012. So years 1, 2, and 3 within this document represent 2012, 2013, and 2014. But the different schools that really started working with the technology as the core focus, and then started to bring in this idea of, well, we're using the tools to personalize, to greater personalize. We actually need to update this information for where personalized learning is today, but essentially it's shared across 2 different departments. It's the Imaginarium and their pilot to scale work, and then the personalized learning department, which both Caroline and myself were directors within that department. But the Imaginarium is really responsible for sort of piloting solutions and supporting those schools that are within their cohorts, and then also sort of on our side of things, building the foundational knowledge, which is kind of what we're doing right now, and then building systems that would scale up to all schools. So you can look at cohort 1, 2, and they just selected cohort 3, and I need to get the additional schools that are within that cohort, and we can share that out afterwards as well. But you kind of see, and I'm moving down the document now, you can kind of see the different components of where this sits, both in the Denver 2020, Denver Plan 2020, the Academic Strategic Plan, which some of you may have read, some of you may have heard about, that really situates personalized learning as one of the core components of how we achieve the goals of the Denver Plan 2020. And then more recently, in the vision of the classroom and graduate. I really like the way in which they've sort of just done this definition of personalized, where every child is unique. At DPS, we tailor their learning experiences to meet the backgrounds, interests, assets, and needs of every learner. And I think that's a lot of what we were just talking about, where really it is that unique student that's coming to you with a specific need, or that you are able to tailor the work specifically for the needs of those individual students. I'm actually going to stop here and allow you to ask myself questions, ask Caroline questions on where you, if you have any, about schools that are engaged in personalized learning, or where it fits in the broader scope of the district. And it's okay if you don't have any. Oh, I see Stacy is maybe wants to ask a question. She's muted though.
Okay, sorry. I had a bunch of people just come and take over the library. If we're not in the cohorts, what does that mean?
So it just means that for the most part, you are not, as a school-wide effort, engaged in personalized learning. There are always going to be teachers. There are always going to be teacher leaders who are engaged in the work on their own, but those are schools that are doing it from a design process, and they're working on it at the very least, with a large scope of teachers and leaders in the school. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the question that I have is that, how can we encourage our building to become more engaged in this personalized learning? So I guess my thought is that I need to do this with a classroom teacher and start using some of these, I don't know, suggestions, whatever, to start doing this so that my building can see the advantages of them, because I'm kind of struggling on explaining to my building what it looks like and also getting their buy-in. They just feel like there's so many new things and so much going on that it's like too much.
I think that's huge. Caroline, I wonder if you might touch on that point, and how you see teacher librarians working with those teachers to help build that capacity and sort of build the critical mass within a school.
Right. I think some of this is we're just starting to build this understanding of every classroom will be rigorous, joyful, and personalized. So I think the understanding that, like Stacy brought up, it's just not certain cohorts, but it's every classroom trying to move towards that continuum. I kind of think of it as when we do inquiry, some inquiry is way more structured and guided than others. So I think finding ways, and maybe you see that, I guess it'd be interesting to hear people talk about if you can relate to that in terms of certain teachers that are really willing to give their kids a lot of choice and a lot of voice in what they're doing, and a lot of different options to show what they know, and then other teachers that maybe want to hold on a little bit more tightly.
One of the concerns that some of my teachers have expressed is that if my kids aren't at grade level, how can I mean, they're significantly below grade level, how can I add this to their learning experience? I mean, I need them to be able to read or get to the basics before I can let them go off into personalized learning. That seems to be one of the hang-ups that I'm hearing.
And Ben, feel free to jump in here too, but one thing I often said to teachers on that is that kids are much more engaged in their learning when they have that choice. And so I don't see it as they first better get to grade level before we begin to give them choices. I see it as, in order to get them to grade level, we're going to get their buy-in much more if we allow them to integrate their interests, their strengths, and their needs in their learning.
Yeah, I think that's really huge, and I actually think that that idea of personalization to accelerate is really something that that there's a lot of pretty good research around. So the idea that by targeting a specific need that a student has can help them to accelerate much faster than if you are I mean, even doing some really strong ability grouping, which is a lot more about different differentiation than it is personalization, that you might not be able to target the specific needs of an individual student so that you don't see the same level of gains. So thinking about the ways in which you support at the individual level, and that's something that we're going to do a little bit further in the conversation, where we look at the difference between personalization, differentiation, individualization. But the way in which you work with a teacher to say, you know what, are there specific students that are significantly behind in their grade level? Can we personalize a particular project that would help them? Can we create a scope of inquiry for that individual student that will enable them to work faster, or to really look at some of the other learning opportunities that are open to them that they might not have in their traditional classroom.
And I think too, the research also shows that kids read up 1 or 2 levels when it's something they're really interested in. So I think that when you're talking about trying to get them to grade level, they'll push themselves much harder if it's something they're interested in.
Really good point.
Okay.
So I'm going to go back into our doc here, and what I'd like to do is to give kind of that broad little overview of sort of the definition side, and mostly we've been talking about it in really great terms, but I do want to make sure that we're sort of hitting the framework for personalized learning that we're using in DPS, as well as some really strong definitions from the INACOL folks, and sort of how we look at the pillars of personalized learning. So within the personalized learning framework, there are individualized learning paths. So every student has his or her own learning path.
Please give me a call. Thanks.
We're looking at next generation curriculum and ways of demonstrating learning, so ways of receiving information using the right tools and the right processes, as well as just like we were talking about, the different ways of demonstrating their learning from not just in writing but also visually and other ways. The evolving role of teachers, administrators, and students. So also looking at the way in which we look at multiple roles, so teacher roles, teacher librarian roles, all across, right? Who are all of the people that are supporting students, and really evolving those over time. And then the strategic use of time, physical space, technology, and community. These are the pillars of personalized learning. And then if you notice, all around the circle here is increased student agency. And that was a little bit of what Caroline was talking about with the voice and choice, that they are making choices, but that doesn't necessarily mean they make all of the choices. It means that they have some choice in what they are learning about. And so as you continue to sort of delve deeper into the framework for personalized learning, if you keep on scrolling down the document or watch on the presentation here, you'll see what teachers and students are saying from within these cohorts. So from within these places, some of my favorite things, and I'll just highlight them here. Now my students have the opportunity to have student engagement in learning outside of the school day, as well as a variety of methods beyond the classroom. The idea of engaged in real-world problem solving. Okay, increased involvement from parents, because they have a window into what their students are learning, because they can see the full breadth and depth of the work that's going on, because some of it is online, or they can see the whole scope of the learning rather than just what's going on that particular day. I also really like the student comments that are in here. I've been growing as a learner. My learning is deeper now, that they can actually verbalize that and talk about that. As well as it's easier to get my work done. I can track my thinking and make sure I know what I have to do, right? It's that level of cognition that they have for what comes next. So that's a really important component. Another place that you can look is actually we're sort of framing this question as, what does personalized learning mean to you? and how are you already supporting the personalized learning within your role? If you open up the link, so it's ourdps.pl/question1, or if you go into our Google Doc for today and click on that link, you'll see all of the different people that have already been answering this question. So you can view all of the older posts. We've done this with GT teachers. We've done this with some school support staff at the central office level, as well as some folks from the ELA department and ELA-S teachers. And there's some really strong ideas around how people see personalized learning as already a part of something that they're doing. I'd like to give you a moment to read through these materials, as well as to make a comment on your own. How do you see, and you've already verbalized this a little bit, but you can add your voice to this conversation. What does personalized learning mean to you, and how are you already supporting personalized learning within your role? You know, what does this make you think about as you read through these student voices, these teacher voices, and now as you add the teacher librarian voice to this conversation, it really helps us to bring up, you know what, it's not just one role that's doing this. It's not just one part of the equation that is responsible for this. It really is all of us. So take a moment and comment within this particular TAC. So if you scroll down to the bottom, you can leave a comment, or you can reply to someone that's already been there. And so you can take a look at this. So I'm gonna put it on pause for the moment, so that you can have an opportunity to do that. And Stacy, I just saw in the back channel here that you've got, you're saying you're feeling like you're doing this so much with the project-based and inquiry-based learning. I am so glad that you are seeing that connection, because that's exactly it, right? The way in which we structure our inquiry, and frankly, Caroline and I were talking a lot about this. Like, you guys are the experts in inquiry in the building. How can you be better leveraged for personalized learning out in the rest of the building so that other people can be the inquiry experts? Caroline, I don't know if you want to touch on that while people are commenting, or if we want to let people just comment.
I guess I would just say that I think it's exciting that personalized learning is a focus right now, because I do think it has such a direct connection to libraries and what teacher librarians do in their buildings. So I think it validates what we've known, which is that kids get excited about inquiry, especially when they get to make their own choices.
So Stacy, did you just put in this comment into the TAC, personalized learning doesn't have to be tech-based, but tech-based learning makes it easy in many ways?
Yeah, because it's pretty easy. I mean, that's what most of my inquiry-based and project-based learning is with my students. It's a lot of tech-based projects, and I mean, whether we're doing research and then they're having to have a final project, but a lot of it's tech-based. And I saw at the top somebody had said, you know, it doesn't have to be tech-based, and no, it doesn't have to be, but especially if you're in the library, it makes it pretty easy, because the students, they get excited about it if it's tech-based, and it's very intuitive for them. So they can kind of take it and run with it.
So where is the document to comment on? I can't.
Oh, I'm so sorry if it didn't show up. Let me pull it back up here, and I'll share my screen once again.
Okay.
Oop,
Wow.
Yeah, that is not what I meant to do. Let me just tell you that right now. The infinite loop of Google Hangouts is not what I wanted. So the link is ourdps.pl/question1. And I just saw that we had one new member, Jeanette.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
So we are talking about personalized learning and really just diving into what does it mean for you and how are you already supporting. So our Google Doc I'll put into the chat if you want to take a look at it there. But the link that's up on your screen you can also engage with. And we'll come back in just a second. Our DPS. So that's the document link to the overall document, Jeanette, and then the individual link to the question that is at hand. Sudi, you say that the library is the best place for personalized learning to take place. I'm really interested in the idea that the lack of curriculum could be a bonus, or that the freedom allows for more personalized learning. Say more about what you're thinking there. Oh, you're on mute. You're going to have to try again.
You know, a lot of the, one of the things that we see as a detriment to being a librarian is that we may not have set standards to speak to, or at the state level, or we may not have a specific curriculum to teach when we're new and we're still trying to figure things out. But that allows us more creativity as instructors, and it allows us to give the students more freedom to be creative in their learning. So when we're teaching them something that is a structured lesson plan, they still have more wiggle room within the lesson plan because, well, honestly, we aren't teaching to the test, and we aren't as held to what's on PARC as may happen in other classrooms.
Yeah,
and
I think. Yeah,
enjoy that the most about teaching in the classroom.
Right. Yeah.
I'll let you talk, Ben.
No. I like the way in which you're framing this is that the freedom of the library could actually expand out past the library, and the way in which you personalize within the library might expand out to the broader scope, but that we might provide, or you might provide for teachers who are feeling that pinch, that added additional space, and that space for personalization to happen, and I think becoming a resource for people. I think that's huge. So one last thought I'm going to incorporate here, Jeanette. I think there are so many different definitions of personalized learning, trying to solidify my own personal definition. I think that's really important. Hopefully within this session you'll have a little bit of a frame for the way in which DPS as a whole is taking a look at personalized learning, but I actually think it's really important that we each come up with our own definitions of personalized learning, because it's important in order to be able to live it, in order to be able to implement it. We have to have it mean something. Personalized learning in and of itself doesn't actually mean anything. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep on scrolling our doc here, because the next portion of this is actually sort of the deeper level of conversation. And the deeper level of conversation, we're not going to have time just within this session to really dive into either one of these deep dives, but I want to let you know that these are really strong resources for you. And if there's sufficient interest, I'd love to go deeper with either one of them in a larger session, or even in a face-to-face environment as well. So a lot of times we get asked the question, what's the difference between personalization, differentiation, and individualization? And the way in which it's set up within the Google Doc, and the Google document is, once again, ourdps.pl/librarians. But if you open up the link that is on this page where it says Time for Deeper Conversations, there is a link in there where there is both a drawing version and a PDF version. And the reason why I'm using the drawing version is because you can leave comments on this one, and you can actually explore it. So I'm gonna let it load here for just a second. But this is something that Brian McClaskey The folks who wrote Make Learning Personal is a book that we are using within DPS to help us to guide our work through personalized learning. They really focused on the ways in which personalization is distinct from differentiation. And a lot of the ways that they talk about it is that personalization focuses on the learner, and differentiation and individualization focus on the teacher and their moves. And so, whereas, in personalization, the learner drives the learning, in differentiation, the teacher provides instruction to the groups of learners, really presenting things, right? Individualization might be that the teacher provides instruction to an individual learner, okay? But in personalization, the student or the learner is really responsible for that. So I encourage you to dive deeply into sort of the work of where personalization, differentiation, individualization fits. But one of my favorite components that I think is thinking about for the teacher librarian is this one right here, and I'm just going to zoom in really, really close. So in personalized learning, the learner becomes a self-directed expert learner who monitors progress and reflects upon learning based upon the mastery of content and skills. The way in which learners know what it is that they need in an inquiry process, right? They are going through the inquiry process and they are directing what it is that they need next in order to dive deeper, right? They are an expert in the process of inquiry. They might not be an expert in the content yet, but they are an expert in the process of inquiry where they know where they're getting stuck and they can go to folks for help, or they can rely on their peers and those folks. Peers and the other teachers and resources in the building, and that they're able to really think about their skills and continue to self-monitor. So that was one that I had called attention to. I would love to know about how you see this really fitting in, and what aspects of personalized learning come up for you. So we'll spend just a second looking at it. If there's anything that is calling out to you, saying, hey, this screams to me teacher librarians. And I'll let you, Sudi and Caroline, also play our game here. But within our Google Doc, it's right on the page that says personalization versus differentiation versus individualization. So I'll let you spend a moment. Is there anything that's screaming out to you? Teacher librarian, teacher librarian.
Well, I think one thing on the personalization side, where it says connects learning with interests, talents, passions, and aspirations, I think this is something teacher librarians do with reading in general, and so I think we think about that when we're doing our collection, when we're guiding them to a reading choice, and definitely in inquiry. It's always that assessing what gets them excited, or talking to them about what their passions are. So I think that's something teacher librarians do well and bring to the conversation.
Here's an example of something I just did today with my 7th grade class. I have had them working on creating a goal, and I wanted it limited to something we were working on in class, so some kind of a technical skill or some kind of a writing skill. And so they could pick out which area they each want to become an expert in.
Yep.
So they've done a writing piece about it, and then I'm also going to have them record. So that way we can kind of focus on what each one of their interests are.
That's huge. And I like the way you're breaking it down to be very, very concrete. Like, this is how it looks in my own practice. I think that's huge.
Right.
Anybody else? Right. Well, then the second deep dive, and clearly that was not actually sufficient time to do a deep dive, but the idea is that you're getting sort of this overview, but then you will have additional time to dig deeper. The second component here, and I'm just, again, scrolling down our lovely little Google Doc, is to look at personal learner profiles. And it's thinking about, and we've talked around this, but the idea that for every student, for every adult learner in your building, there is a profile of strengths, needs, interests, and constraints that are helping to either support them or hold them back as a learner. And it's really important for our students to identify these components, and for us as teachers and leaders within the building to use those components to help drive better learning. And so we call this the SNCC model, strengths, needs, interests, and constraints. And I encourage you to think about, how does knowing this information about yourself as an adult learner help you to better personalize your own learning? Or as a student learner, helping the students to personalize their own learning? How would knowing this information about your students help you to better personalize learning for them? And really, you know, how often do you think you could come back to this, to update these things, to better reflect new strengths, new needs? And the one that we don't talk a lot about are the constraints. Right now, there are people that have time constraints. I'm going to be taking my daughter to soccer practice immediately after we get off of this call, as many of you are probably doing the next thing as it comes. Like, we have these time constraints. Students have constraints too. They don't have access to certain things at home. They don't have some of the time, you know, don't have the level of reading knowledge that they might need in order to be able to gain the content access that they might need. And so how do we brainstorm and how do we support the personalization for someone's learner profile in a way that makes sense? So I'm going to actually open it up for just a couple of thoughts as well. You know, how does knowing this information about yourself help you to better personalize, or how does a student knowing this about him or herself help them to personalize? And how does it knowing about your students help you to personalize for them?
Has anyone used this in their building yet or seen this? Does this look familiar to anyone? No?
I've never seen it.
Nope.
Brand new, hot off the presses.
I think one of the benefits that this chart has is, as an educator who's always trying to improve and not become stagnant, knowing my constraints allows me to identify them and identify ways that I can keep them from inhibiting me as an educator. I think that with that in mind, that this model is probably something that you don't do just once every 10 years either.
Very true. Very true.
Ben, are you seeing anyone using these with kids?
So we are seeing them being used with kids in the GT classroom. We're seeing them being used in some of the ELA classrooms. You know, we created it as a part of the personalized professional learning. And so if you go into the PGP, which I'm not sure if teacher librarians have that particular pleasure or not. Okay, great. If you go into the PGP, this model is actually linked for how you start to think about your goals based upon your strengths, needs, interests, and constraints. So it is, you know, a component, but really it's thinking about, all right, so if I know what the student's strengths are, how do I better prepare for that? If I know the needs, or even, and I think a lot of you spoke to interests and passions. You guys are activating very often the passions and interests of students to help better give them access to the content. All right, I see a lot of nodding heads. We are heading in on our final 5 minutes. Megan, do you want to say one last thought?
So I see the SNCC here with the comments on the side, which is awesome. But when I go to try to print, oh, here, I can make a copy. When I go to try to print it, I'm not getting the comments on the side. And as I see myself trying to explain this to teachers, the comments on the side, the comment boxes would be really helpful to have.
So you can do in the interim. I can make a version that has it in the interim. If you make a copy and then just expand out the size of the drawing, you can incorporate the comments for a printed version.
Okay.
That's a really good point.
Okay, I will try that.
All right, I'm going to go back into share my screen mode, and we're going to head on into our last little bit. So, oops, come on, little screen share.
FYI, Ben, it's pouring rain outside, so you may not be going to soccer.
Fair enough. Yeah. All right. Fair enough. They do like making the parents sit out in the rain, as long as it's not lightning and thundering. Yep. So we'll just have to play that one by ear. All right.
I think that I would find soccer in the rain far more entertaining.
They're 9-year-olds, so they're not that good to begin with. So anyway. So if you scroll down the document, there are sort of 2 last things that I want to leave you with, which is, 1, this reflection closing next steps. So how will you personalize learning? You've already listened to a bunch of really great things, but what are some of the baby steps? Is there one teacher you're going to work with this year to help create that use case? Megan, I really love your thoughts around how do we start to sort of build the capacity within your building to do so. This is not a formal commitment. This is not going to any evaluator or anything like that. But the idea is that, you know, what are you going to try this year? What support might you need? And if you need that support, putting your name next to it would be a good idea. And then the last component, as I scroll down here, are if you want to continue this conversation, there are a couple of really great Twitter hashtags to use: Happy Classrooms, Stu Voice or Student Voice, and then Personalized Learning. Really great to see what's going on, not just in Denver, but around the nation and internationally. And really looking at ways in which we see examples every single day, right?
So Ben, can I ask, so one big concern that my teachers have expressed is that the fear of it being like a 3-ring circus or a 6-ring circus in their classroom as they're trying to manage all these different personalized learning experiences. And that's the vision that we're kind of stuck on right now, is how to actually make this happen in the class.
I think that's huge.
Yeah.
I really do. The way in which we talk about this, not as and chaos go, right? Like I think the way in which we talk about, you know what, I am facilitating personalized learning. I am very much going to be as a teacher. I am going to create the experience as a discrete experience. So there are components of the way in which you set up stations to do so, the way in which you set up a mini lesson, that you record the mini lesson and have students walk through that particular piece of content while you work through another with another group of folks, where you have students, once they have mastered a topic, creating a video or a piece of learning for the other students who are going through that trajectory later. But it's really looking at concrete models to say, oh, this could be done within a classroom, and there are ways of splitting and strategically organizing students. But I do think that you're right. It takes those examples. It takes walking it through and maybe even going to a classroom virtually or in real life and saying, oh, that's how it works, right? Because while I do think, yes, teachers could give up a little more control of their classrooms, like that's okay, right?
Right.
But it's not necessarily that we're going from like current state to fully personalized classrooms in like the next week, right? Like that's a myth. And I think if we tried to do those things, then we would end up with chaos.
And it's not 100% of the kids all the time, right? You can
Right, exactly right.
Okay.
Exactly right. So I think the way in which we talk about it, also the way in which we allow for multiple entry points. Not everybody is ready to do all of it. So I think that's really valuable, and that's probably a really important point to drive home with additional conversations. All right, I'm going to leave you guys because we are at time, but there is a session evaluation in the Google Doc. We would love to know what you thought of this format, as well as what worked, what didn't work for you, and sort of the overall rating for the session itself. This is recorded, and Caroline, I'm sure you're going to send out some follow-up to the folks who weren't able to make it. But thank you for being.
Yeah, thank you.
I really enjoyed the time.
Thanks, Ben.
Absolutely. Talk to you guys soon.
Okay. Have a great night, everyone.
Have fun in the rain. Enjoy the wetness.